She thought it was just another shift at the cafe, until a single spilled cup of coffee changed everything. What she didn't know? The man she accidentally drenched in steaming espresso was a powerful CEO, searching for more than just dry cleaning. What started as a mistake would uncover a hidden plan, a broken truth, and a choice that could rewrite both their lives forever. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and like the video. It really helps us share more inspiring stories like this. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. Nora Wells didn't plan to be behind the counter at the little cafe that morning. She had promised herself a quiet day. Maybe catch her breath, maybe look for another job. But when her roommate called in sick and begged her to cover the morning shift, Nora said yes, like she always did. She pulled her blonde curls into a loose bun, tied on the black apron, and stepped into the familiar scent of espresso, vanilla syrup, and early morning stress. The line was long. The espresso machine groaned. Someone had spilled sugar near the counter. Her shoes squeaked a little as she moved, and then he walked in, tall, crisp, like someone who belonged in a boardroom, not a sleepy neighborhood cafe. His charcoal suit looked expensive, the kind that made you straighten your posture without realizing it. His hair was dark, not a strand out of place, and his jawline was sharp enough to cut glass. He checked his watch twice before even reaching the counter. Nora didn't see him at first. She was focused on the order in front of her, something iced too complicated with oat milk. She turned to grab the next cup, and in 1 second, everything changed. The cup slipped, hot coffee, fresh, from the pot, splashed across his chest. Dark liquid bloomed over his gray suit like a fast-moving storm cloud. Oh my. Nora froze. I'm so sorry. She grabbed a stack of napkins from the counter, her hands shaking. She reached toward him, then hesitated. What was she supposed to do, blot at a stranger's chest? He looked down slowly, then up. His face was stone. This is a $3,000 suit, he said, each word like a gavel slamming down. Was that too hard to manage? Nora swallowed hard. I didn't mean to. Please let me pay for the dry cleaning. Sorry doesn't fix Armani. The cafe hushed. Even the blender stopped mid-whir. Someone gasped. A spoon clinked loudly into a mug. Nora stood frozen. Her heart was thudding in her chest so loud it felt like the whole room could hear it. Her face burned. Her hand still gripped the napkins she hadn't dared use. He stared at her like she was a mistake he hadn't budgeted for. I understand, she said quietly. If I could rewind 5 seconds, I would. But I can't. All I can do now is apologize, and I mean it. Truly. Something about her tone, plain honest without begging, made his gaze shift. Not softer exactly, but less sharp. She didn't cry. She didn't look away, and for a moment, neither did he. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a cloth handkerchief. He dabbed at the stain, more annoyed than angry now. Nora waited, still and silent. Inside, her thoughts were a storm. Rent due, groceries not yet bought, a resume with no replies, and now this. He glanced at her name tag. Nora, Taylor Street Cafe. She straightened. He looked like he wanted to say something else. Instead, he placed a small business card on the counter. I'll handle the cleaning. Sir, I can... No need. Then, softer, almost like a different person, he added. Just be more careful. It was hot. And then he turned and walked out. The bell over the door jingled. The hush lifted. People started whispering. Nora stared at the card. Micah Calderon, CEO. Something global sounding. She didn't recognize the name, but it sounded important. Too important for a $4 coffee. Her co-worker passed behind her. You okay? Nora nodded. I think so. But her hands were still trembling. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of drink orders and polite smiles, but her mind kept circling back to that moment. The flash of his anger, the unexpected calm that followed, the strange heaviness in the air. Outside the cafe, Micah Calderon leaned against a nearby post, pulling out the stained receipt from his pocket. He scribbled something on the back, folded it, and tucked it into his wallet. He hadn't told her the truth, that he wasn't just a busy man in a suit, that his father's estate had left him a cruel challenge: marry within 90 days or hand over his company to a corporate rival. He had laughed when he first read it. Now, he wasn't laughing. Matchmakers hadn't worked. Executive dating services failed. And every woman he met saw the name, the bank account, not the man beneath it. But she hadn't known him. She had spilled coffee on him, yes. But she hadn't chased after him with flattery or fear. She had been real. Micah looked back at the cafe, then down at her name on the card again. Nora Wells. A plan was already forming, not for revenge, not even just for business. But something in him had shifted that morning too. Nora Wells didn't think she would hear from him again. After the coffee spill, after the awkward silence, after that strange business card with bold letters and an unreadable name, she had folded it into her pocket and planned to forget the whole thing. But 2 days later, her phone rang. The voice on the line was calm and professional. "Hello, this is Carrie from Calderon Global. Mr. Micah Calderon would like to invite you to interview for a temporary assistant role at our main office." Nora almost dropped her phone. I think there's been a mistake. You're Nora Wells, correct?" "Yes, but I'm a barista. I've never worked in an office before." "Mr. Calderon is aware," Carrie said. "He still wishes to meet with you. Are you available tomorrow at 10 a.m.? Nora stared at the half-empty cereal bowl on her kitchen table. She hadn't had a real job since the youth center closed. She barely had rent for the month. But something about that day in the cafe had stuck with her too. Not just the embarrassment, but the way he had looked at her near the end, like he saw something he hadn't expected. "Okay," she said slowly. "I'll be there." The building was made of glass and steel, tall and quiet, like the kind of place where people wore suits that didn't wrinkle and walked faster than they needed to. Nora stepped into the lobby with her best borrowed blazer and shoes that pinched. The receptionist smiled and guided her to the elevator. "Top floor," she said. "He's expecting you." When the doors opened, Nora found herself in a space that looked more like a high-end hotel than an office. Marble floors, soft lighting, art on the walls. And at the end of the hallway, Micah Calderon stood in front of a glass wall looking out at the city. He turned when she entered. "Miss Wells," he said, his voice even. Nora nodded, unsure whether to smile or run. "Hi, I still don't understand why I'm here." Micah gestured toward a chair. "I wanted to offer you a short-term job. You'd be assisting me directly. No need for experience, just someone who listens, who's quick on her feet, and who doesn't tell me what I want to hear." She blinked. "And spilling coffee on you helped me qualify?" For the first time, he smiled slightly. "Let's call it an honest introduction." Nora tilted her head. "This is serious?" "Yes." "Why me?" Micah paused. "You were honest. Even when I was harsh, you didn't flinch or flatter. Most people want something from me. You didn't." Nora looked down at her hands. She had been fired before, overlooked, rejected, and now a man with an office bigger than her entire apartment was offering her a job based on one messy moment. "I'll try," she said, "but I don't know much about business." "You'll learn," he said simply. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Nora arrived each day at 8:30 sharp, learning how to organize schedules, respond to emails, and politely tell people Mr. Calderon is unavailable, even when they seemed very sure he was. Micah didn't hover. He gave her tasks and let her figure them out. When she made mistakes, he corrected her without anger. And slowly something started to shift. Nora noticed things, like how the staff whispered when Micah walked past and how meetings always ended early when he was in the room. People respected him, but they also feared him. He was polite, professional, but distant, except with her. Over time, he started asking her opinion, not just on schedules, but people. "What do you think of the new marketing head?" he asked once. Nora shrugged. "She talks more than she listens. I don't think you'll like that long term." Micah didn't argue. He nodded. And 2 days later, the position was quietly reposted. He listened to her, more than he listened to his executives. But Nora still felt a strange tension in the air, like something unsaid was hanging just beyond reach. One evening, after a long day, she walked past his office and saw him staring out the window again, just like the first day they met. His tie was loose, his shoulders tense. She knocked gently. "Everything okay?" she asked. Micah didn't look at her. "Just thinking." "About what?" "Choices," he said. "What they cost, and what they're worth." Nora stepped in slowly. "You don't talk like a man with everything." He glanced at her. "Maybe that's because I don't have everything." She wanted to ask more, but something in his eyes told her not to. Later that night, Nora sat on her couch, a leftover burrito in her lap, and tried to make sense of it all. This job, this strange turn in her life, this man with all his power and mystery. She couldn't figure out what was real and what wasn't. But one thing was clear. She didn't feel small anymore. And she wasn't just a barista with bad luck and late rent. She was something more now. And Micah Calderon, for reasons she still didn't understand, had seen that in her. The office was unusually quiet that Friday afternoon. Most of the staff had left early for the weekend, and the cloudy sky outside gave the whole floor a soft, sleepy glow. Nora sat at her desk, organizing documents for Monday's big board meeting. She didn't mind staying late. Truthfully, she liked the peace. Micah had gone downstairs for a quick phone call. She could still hear the elevator ding from where she sat. She stood to place a folder on his desk, then paused. The screen on his computer was still lit. An email opened. She hadn't meant to look. She really hadn't. But her name was in the subject line. Prenup draft. Backup plan confirmation. Nora Wells. Her heart stopped. At first, she didn't believe it. Maybe it was about another person. Maybe it was a mistake. Her hand moved the mouse without thinking. The full message loaded. It was real. Her eyes scanned the words. Candidate A, fallback strategy, proximity useful, good public image. The phrases hit like a punch to the chest. She was never just an assistant, never just a kind stranger who spilled coffee on someone powerful. She was part of a backup plan. Micah hadn't found her by accident. He had placed her here. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard and stepped back from the desk like it had burned her. He chose me, she thought. But he didn't. He used me. The elevator doors opened and Micah walked in, his usual calm expression in place. But the second he saw her face, red, stunned, full of something more than sadness, he froze. "Nora?" he asked. "What happened?" She didn't answer right away. Her fingers clutched the edge of his desk. The email still glowed behind her. "You really thought I wouldn't find out?" she asked, her voice low and sharp. Micah's eyes flicked to the screen. His face went pale. "Nora, I can explain." "Don't." Her voice cracked. "Don't insult me more by pretending this wasn't calculated." He took a step closer. "Please, just let me explain." "Was I part of your plan from the beginning?" she asked, shaking her head. "Some project to fix your little marriage problem? Am I plan B because plan A didn't work out?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The silence between them felt louder than any argument. "You were supposed to be temporary," he said finally, voice rough. "At first, yes. It was all part of something I needed to do. To keep the company. To follow a rule my father left behind." "So I was a rule?" she snapped. "No. It became real," he said quickly. "After a few days, I stopped thinking about the company. It wasn't about that anymore." She laughed bitterly. "You fell for your plan B? That's romantic." He looked down, ashamed. "I never meant to hurt you." "But you did," she whispered. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she wouldn't let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. "You let me believe this was something honest. And all along, You were testing me, observing me, waiting to see if I fit your checklist. It wasn't like that, he said, stepping forward. Then what was it like? She asked, her voice trembling. I gave you my time, my loyalty, my trust, and you gave me a role in a game I didn't know I was playing. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Nora picked up her bag, hands shaking. I don't want your money. I don't want your apology, and I definitely don't want your plan. Please, Micah said one last time. The word barely made it out. She turned to him, eyes full of heartbreak and fire. You looked at me and saw a solution, not a person. But I am a person, Micah, and you lost me. And then she walked away. Micah stood there frozen, the office silent around him. He didn't follow her. He didn't beg again. He just watched as the elevator doors closed behind the only person who had ever seen him as more than a title. That night, Micah sat alone in his office. The lights were off. The city skyline outside shimmered, but he barely noticed it. The computer screen in front of him was still open. He read the email again. Fallback strategy. Plan B. Nora Wells. He hated every word of it. He had built his entire life on logic, on structure, on making things happen. But this had been different, and he hadn't known how to handle it. Until it was too late. The next day, he showed up at the Taylor Street Cafe. He sat at the corner table, the same one where it all began. The barista behind the counter didn't recognize him. To them, he was just another man with tired eyes and a black coffee. But he waited. Hours passed. No Nora. He came back the next day, and the one after that. He didn't bring his laptop, didn't take calls, just waited. On the 7th day, he left a $20 bill under his cup and walked to the park nearby. He sat on a bench and watched the rain paint ripples across the pond. And that night, he did something he never thought he would. He opened a blank document and wrote his resignation. The public library on Greenview Avenue had always felt like a quiet hiding place for Nora Wells. After everything that happened, after walking out of Micah Calderon's office, after discovering that she had been part of a plan, she found herself returning to the familiar calm of books and silence. She started volunteering there again, shelving books, reading to children, helping elderly readers find large print novels. It wasn't glamorous and it didn't pay much, but it brought peace. And for a heart still hurting, peace was enough. Weeks passed. She tried not to think about him, about his voice, his kindness that had once seemed real. She pushed away the memories of coffee runs, late-night conversations, and the strange comfort she had found just being in the same room as him. But sometimes, she wondered, did he regret it? Did he ever truly care? Or had she been just a name on a list from the very beginning? On a quiet Thursday afternoon, as rain tapped softly against the library windows, Nora stepped outside to lock the doors. The sky was gray, the streets wet and mostly empty. And then she saw him, standing across the street, hands in his coat pockets, his hair damp from the rain. Micah. He didn't move, didn't wave, just waited like he wasn't sure if he had the right to come closer. Nora's heart thudded. She didn't walk away, but she didn't speak either. Slowly, he crossed the street. He stopped a few feet in front of her. Not too close, not pushing, just there like someone holding a fragile truth in both hands. Hi, he said, voice quiet. Hi, she replied, her arms still crossed, unsure what this was or why he'd come. I know I shouldn't be here, he said, but I needed to tell you something, not to fix things, not to change your mind, just because it's true. Nora didn't answer, but she didn't stop him either. I was scared, he admitted, not of the company, not of the merger. I was scared of letting someone really see me, scared that if I let go of control, I'd lose everything. He looked at her, and for the first time, there was no wall in his eyes, just regret, and something softer. So I made a script, he continued. I created a plan and tried to fit someone into it, but then you walked into my life, and nothing followed the plan after that. Nora blinked slowly, listening. You were real, he said. You didn't try to impress me. You didn't see the title or the money. You just saw me. And I didn't know what to do with that. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded slip of paper. It was old and soft around the edges. I kept this, he said, handing it to her. From the day you spilled coffee on me. She looked at it. The cafe receipt, with something written on the back in neat handwriting. The best mistake of my life. If you still remember, I'll be at the same table. Nora's breath caught. I left the company, he said. Walked away from everything that was built on a lie. Not for you, but because I finally understood what matters. And if I can't have you with truth, then I don't want anything else. He smiled gently, sadly. I'm not asking for anything. You don't owe me anything. I hope you'll remember that day and know that I'll be waiting. He stepped back, gave her one last look, and turned to leave. The next morning, just after sunrise, Nora stood in front of the Taylor Street Cafe. She hesitated only a second before pushing open the door. The bell above chimed softly. The warm smell of espresso and baked muffins wrapped around her like an old memory. And there he was, sitting alone at the corner table. No phone, no laptop, just a paper cup and hope in his eyes. He stood the moment he saw her. He didn't speak. Neither did she. They just looked at each other, two people who had been broken and brave, scared and still standing. Nora smiled, unsure, but real. May I join you? She asked. Always, he said. She sat down. There was no grand speech, no sudden kiss, just quiet. And then he slid a cup toward her. Vanilla chai with almond milk, he said softly. Her favorite. She laughed. You remembered. I remember everything, he said. They sat there sipping slowly. No more pretending, no more lies. Just two people who knew what it was like to lose and still found their way back. Maybe not to the beginning, but to something better, something true.